when my stepsister, Tiffany, screamed, "All of Daddy's money is mine." She didn't realize I had just blocked her credit card. This luxurious dinner was going to be the beginning of her ruin. The sound of wrapping paper being torn violently broke the silence of the morning in the living room of the Sterling estate. The house was massive, a neoclassical mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, with towering pillars that hinted at past glory. However, for Kate Sterling, this house was merely a stage for a play where the operating costs had become absurd. "Mom, look at this! Finally, the rose gold edition I ordered last month arrived," squealed Tiffany, Kate's stepsister. The 23-year-old girl hoisted a French designer handbag into the air as if it were a championship trophy. On the sofa opposite her, Brenda, Kate's stepmother, was polishing her nails a blood-red color. She smiled broadly, her eyes twinkling as she looked at the leather bag. "It's gorgeous, darling. Perfect for the country club brunch the day after tomorrow. You'll lend it to Mama first, won't you?" "Ah, Mama, buy your own." "Just ask Daddy," Tiffany replied in a spoiled tone, then turned her gaze to the middle-aged man sitting in the corner, hidden behind a copy of the Wall Street Journal that hadn't even been turned in 15 minutes. "Daddy, why hasn't this month's transfer come through in full? I want a facial this afternoon, and I need to book a venue for a friend's birthday party." Arthur Sterling lowered his newspaper slowly. His face looked exhausted. The lines of aging on his forehead were deepening not from age, but from the burden of his thoughts. "Tiffany, this month your credit card spending has already exceeded the $20,000 limit. Can't you hold off for a bit?" Brenda immediately slammed her nail polish bottle shut. "Arthur, what are you saying? Tiffany is your daughter too, now. Are you forbidding a young girl from taking care of herself? You're a former CEO, for heaven's sake. It would be embarrassing if your daughter looked unkempt. Your pension and stock dividends are still piling up, aren't they?" Kate, who had been sitting quietly at the dining table typing on her laptop, just scoffed softly. She sipped her black coffee, sugar-free. Her eyes never left the screen displaying corporate financial charts. Not her father's company, but her own. Apex Capital. The irony in the room was so thick it felt suffocating. Brenda and Tiffany were still living in a bubble of illusion that Arthur Sterling was a wealthy tycoon, enjoying his retirement. They didn't know or chose to be blind to the fact that Arthur's construction firm had gone bankrupt 5 years ago after being defrauded by business partners. All liquid assets were gone to pay off debts. This house, the luxury SUVs in the garage, the electricity bills skyrocketing because the central AC ran 24/7, right down to the rose gold bag in Tiffany's hand, everything was paid for by Kate. "Dad," Kate called out flatly. Without looking up, she added, "Just say it if there's no cash." Brenda shot Kate a look of disdain. "You, Kate, don't be an agitator. Your father is just being stingy. Just because you work as a freelance consultant? Don't make your mediocre salary the standard for our lifestyle." Kate smirked. Freelance consultant. That was the cover she had used all this time. She let them believe she was just an ordinary employee so they wouldn't nag her for her money directly. It was enough that her father acted as the intermediary. All right, Arthur intervened with a hoarse voice. He looked at Kate with pleading eyes, a look that always melted Kate's heart while simultaneously infuriating her. "I'll try to make the transfer later, Tiffany, but please, be a little frugal." "Yay, thanks, Daddy!" Tiffany kissed her father's cheek briefly before running to her room, busy with her iPhone. After Tiffany left and Brenda went to the kitchen to scold the housekeeper about breakfast, Kate closed her laptop. She walked over to her father. "Dad, how long are you going to maintain this lie?" Kate whispered sharply. Arthur looked down, avoiding his daughter's gaze. "Kate, Brenda has a heart condition. I'm afraid if she finds out we're bankrupt, Does she have heart disease or a disease of high prestige?" Kate cut in coldly. 5 years, Dad. For 5 years I have subsidized this stupidity to keep your pride intact in front of them. But Tiffany is getting out of control. That bag cost $7,000. That money could have been used to renovate the orphanage you used to manage. Arthur massaged his temples. "Just a little longer, honey. Tiffany is getting close to Preston. If Tiffany gets married, she'll be her husband's responsibility. Our burden will decrease." Kate let out a long sigh. She loved her father, the man who raised her alone after her biological mother died, before that snake of a woman named Brenda entered their lives. However, that love was now mixed with pity and frustration. Her father was no longer the business lion she once admired. He had become a walking wallet for the parasites in his own home. "Fine," Kate said, grabbing her briefcase. "But remember, Dad, that supplementary credit card has a limit, and my patience has a limit too, and mine is much lower than the card's." A week later, the time bomb began ticking faster. Dinner, usually filled only with the clinking of silverware, felt louder this time. Tiffany came home with a beaming face. On her ring finger was a diamond ring that was slightly too small, but its sparkle was enough to make Brenda shriek hysterically. "Preston proposed to me!" Tiffany exclaimed, showing off the ring under the crystal chandelier. "Oh my God, finally!" Brenda hugged her daughter tightly, as if Tiffany had just won the lottery. In Brenda's mind, Tiffany had just hit the jackpot. Preston Vanderbilt was the only son of an old industrialist family that owned a chain of five-star hotels in Manhattan. Mama knew you could get him. His pedigree is clear. Arthur smiled thinly, congratulating her sincerely. "Thank goodness. I'm happy for you. Preston is a polite young man." Well, because of that, Tiffany sat up straight, staring at Arthur with a demanding look. Kate knew all too well. "We have to talk about wedding plans. Dad, Preston's family is old money. We can't just have an average party. It would be embarrassing in front of your colleagues and the Vanderbilt's business connections." Kate, who was cutting her steak, paused. She had anticipated this conversation. "You must agree, right, Arthur?" Brenda added quickly. "This is our chance to show that the Sterling family still has teeth. Don't let the in-laws look down on us." "What kind of budget are you imagining?" asked Arthur cautiously. Tiffany pulled out a wedding magazine and slammed it on the table. "I want a Royal American concept. Renting the grand ballroom at the Plaza Hotel, a gown by Vera Wang, and imported souvenirs from Italy. The rough estimate is around $200,000. Dad, that doesn't include the engagement party. $200,000. Arthur choked on his water. His face went pale. "Tiffany, that is a huge amount of money. The economic condition right now is—" "What? Why are you talking like that?" Tiffany interrupted in a high pitch. $200,000 is small change for you, right? You have those deposits you said you haven't touched for 10 years. The ones you said were for the future." Kate placed her knife and fork down with a loud clink, drawing everyone's eyes to her. "Those deposits don't exist," Kate mumbled softly, but clearly enough. "Hey, you stay out of this," Brenda snapped. "Don't interfere with your father's money. You're just jealous because your sister is marrying a rich man while you're still busy working day and night with no clear direction." "Kate is right, Tiffany," Arthur tried to explain, his voice trembling. "The value of those deposits isn't as much as you imagine. Bank interest fluctuates and— Dad, don't be stingy." Tiffany stomped her foot. Her eyes began to tear up, her ultimate weapon. "This is once in a lifetime. Preston already promised to buy me a luxury car after the wedding. Can't you even fund the party? Oh, and one more thing. Preston said after we marry, we need privacy. I want the beach house in the Hamptons transferred to my name as a wedding gift." Hearing that, Kate almost laughed. The house in the Hamptons. That was one of the property assets Kate had just bought last year under her own name, which she happened to show a photo of to her father. Apparently, Tiffany had eavesdropped and thought it belonged to Arthur. That house. Arthur swallowed hard, glancing at Kate in panic. "That house is an investment, Tiffany. It cannot be given away just like that," Kate said calmly. "Arthur!" Brenda slammed her hand on the table. "You have to be fair. You paid for Kate's master's degree in the Ivy League. You let her live independently. Now it's Tiffany's turn. I don't want to hear about your secret savings or deposits or whatever. Liquidate them. Don't embarrass the family in front of the Vanderbilts. I will." "Think about it," answered Arthur weakly, ending the debate in the most cowardly way possible by delaying the problem. That night, Kate couldn't sleep. She heard faint arguing from her father's room. Brenda's dominating voice, full of demands and emotional threats, interspersed with her father's shrinking voice. Kate stared at the ceiling of her room. Her patience had run out. If her father couldn't stop this madness, then Kate would. In the following days, the house felt like a cold war zone. Brenda launched a silent treatment strategy against Arthur, but acted incredibly sweet to Tiffany. Every time Arthur tried to speak, Brenda would look away or make loud, sarcastic remarks about irresponsible husbands. Tiffany, on the other hand, became more aggressive. She started posting photos of wedding vendors on her Instagram with the caption, "Coming soon," tagging luxury accounts, creating social pressure for her father. She even made appointments with the most expensive wedding organizers without Arthur's final approval. That afternoon, Kate came home early from the Apex Capital headquarters. She found her father sitting alone on the back terrace, staring at the swimming pool where the water was starting to turn cloudy because the circulation pump was broken and hadn't been fixed. "That pump costs $500, Dad," Kate said, sitting in the rattan chair next to him. "Tiffany bought shoes yesterday for $800. The priorities in this house are upside down." Arthur smiled bitterly. "Brenda says she'll ask for a divorce if I don't pay for Tiffany's wedding exactly how they want it." Kate turned quickly. "That's an empty threat, Dad. Brenda has nowhere to go, she has no income, she's just a parasite attached to the host. If the host fights back, she dies, not the host." "I'm tired, Kate," whispered the old man. "I just want the rest of my life to be peaceful. If I give them what they ask, maybe." "With what?" Kate cut in sharply. "You have zero money, Dad. Do you want me to pay for it? $200,000 for a one-night party, while the employees at my old factory, which I just bought back, need their annual bonuses? I'm a business person, Dad. I don't throw money into stupid investments." Arthur fell silent. He knew his daughter was right. Kate wasn't a little girl who could be lied to anymore. She was an iron lady who rebuilt the family business empire from the rubble, alone, without her stepmother and stepsister knowing. "But Tiffany has already spoken to Preston's family," said Arthur desperately. "If they find out we have no money, the wedding is off. Tiffany will be destroyed." "Better destroyed now by honesty than destroyed later by a lie that gets exposed," stated Kate firmly. She held her father's wrinkled hand. "Dad, listen to me. You can't keep being a shield for their ego. They love your money, not you." "Proof? Look at how they treat you when you said, 'I'll think about it.' They pressure you. They don't support you." Arthur looked down, tears welling in the corners of his cloudy eyes. "Next week," Kate said, her voice softening but full of authority. "Tiffany is planning something, isn't she? I heard her calling Preston. Yes, a family dinner. An official meeting of the two families to set the date and hand over the funds." Arthur's voice trembled. "Tiffany demanded I bring all passbooks and deposit certificates. She wants me to sign a power of attorney for asset transfer in front of Preston as proof of commitment." Kate let out a short laugh. A laugh devoid of any humor. Incredible greed. "She wants to humiliate you so you can't back out because there are outsiders present." Kate stood up, smoothing her blazer. Her face was now flat, expressionless, the combat mode she usually used when facing tough negotiations with clients. "All right, Dad, we'll play their game. Go to that dinner. But Dad, don't think about the money. Think about your freedom. It's time for you to choose: remain a dairy cow being slowly slaughtered, or become a father who teaches reality to his child." Kate looked straight at her father. "Tonight, I will prepare the documents. Not asset documents, but reality documents. At that dinner, you have to speak. If you stay silent, I will act. And my way won't be as gentle as yours." The invitation came in the form of a WhatsApp message sent by Tiffany in the family group chat. Not just text, but a digitally designed image, elegant with gold and black nuances. "Family dinner and introduction. Discussion location: Le Bernardin. Private VVIP room time. Saturday 7 p.m. dress code. Formal glamour. Le Bernardin." Kate mumbled as she read the message in her office. The most expensive seafood restaurant in the city, a place where an appetizer costs a minimum wage worker's weekly salary. Tiffany really wanted to squeeze her father dry. Kate pressed the intercom button on her desk. "Sarah, contact the manager at Le Bernardin. Ensure the reservation under Tiffany Sterling is upgraded to the soundproof private room. And please prepare the ownership documents for the house at 8 Oak Street, Greenwich. I need the original copies." "Yes, Miss Sterling." "Anything else?" "Contact the bank. Freeze the supplementary credit card ending in 4,567 exactly at 8 p.m. this Saturday, not a minute earlier or later. Understood, ma'am. At home, the atmosphere heated up. Tiffany was busy fitting her dress. She bought a new evening gown worth $1,200. Of course, with her father's credit card, the bill for which was paid by Kate. Look at this, Dad. Tiffany twirled in front of the living room mirror. The maroon satin dress hugged her body perfectly. Preston will fall in love all over again. Oh, Dad, don't forget to wear that old Armani suit. Even though it's a bit dated, it still looks expensive. And remember the bank books. Arthur only nodded weakly. He looked thinner in the last few days. Brenda approached her husband, straightening Arthur's collar with a movement that looked affectionate but felt suffocating. Arthur, make sure everything goes smoothly. Preston is an only child. If Tiffany gets into that family, our old age is guaranteed. Don't ruin this with your stinginess. Remember, you still owe me for taking care of your child, that Kate, back in the day. Arthur stiffened. You never took care of Kate, Brenda. You ignored her from the first day you entered this house. Brenda's eyes flashed with anger. You dare talk back? Just wait. If you don't sign that fund transfer in front of Preston, I'll make a scene. Let everyone know how stingy you are to your own child. That threat was the final nail for Arthur. He realized there was no love left in his wife's heart, only a calculation of profit and loss. That afternoon, Kate came home carrying a thick navy blue folder. She didn't greet anyone, walking straight into her father's study. Dad. Kate placed the folder on the desk. What is this, Kate? This is our script, Kate said calmly. Inside here is proof of your company's bankruptcy 5 years ago. There is proof of fund flows from my personal account to the household account all this time, and there is the deed to this house in my name. Arthur's hands trembled as he touched the folder. At the restaurant later, Kate continued, when Tiffany demands her promise, give her this folder. It's not money they need, Dad, but a slap of reality. What if Preston cancels the engagement? Arthur asked anxiously. If Preston is a good man, he will accept Tiffany as she is, poor or rich. If he leaves because Tiffany turns out not to be rich, then Tiffany is saved from a materialistic man just as you should have been saved from Brenda. That sentence hit Arthur right in the heart. He looked at his daughter, seeing the reflection of his late first wife there, firm, principled, and unshakable. All right, said Arthur finally. His voice sounded heavier, but steadier. I will do it. Saturday night arrived. A drizzle fell over the city, adding a dramatic touch to their journey to Manhattan. Kate sat in the front passenger seat next to the driver, while Arthur, Brenda, and Tiffany sat in the back. The Escalade was silent. Brenda was busy checking her reflection, making sure her updo was perfect. Tiffany never looked up from her phone, texting Preston. Remember, Dad, whispered Tiffany sharply as the car began to enter the lobby of the magnificent building. Don't embarrass me. As soon as the appetizers are done, you have to talk about the house gift and the party. So Preston becomes more convinced. Arthur didn't answer. He just stared out the window, watching his old and tired reflection in the glass. In his inner jacket pocket, the navy blue folder given by Kate felt heavy, as if filled with stones. They stepped out into the lobby. The maitre d' welcomed them warmly. Tiffany walked in front, chin held high. Her steps were full of confidence, as if she owned the place. Brenda linked her arm through Arthur's forcefully, flashing fake smiles at everyone they passed. Kate walked in the rear. She wore a simple yet elegant black dress, without flashy jewelry except for a Patek Philippe watch that cost more than the luxury SUV they had just ridden in. Her face was calm, but her eyes were alert. They were escorted to the private room. The double-carved doors were opened, revealing a luxurious room with a long table set perfectly. Preston was already waiting there. The young man stood up, smiling politely. He looked handsome and expensive, clearly from a class that had never tasted the hardships of life. Good evening, Uncle, Auntie, greeted Preston, shaking Arthur and Brenda's hands respectfully. Evening, Preston. Oh, you look so dashing, praised Brenda excessively. Hi, baby. Tiffany immediately clung to Preston's arm, then turned to her father with a meaningful look. See, Dad? Don't disappoint me. They sat down. Waiters poured sparkling water into crystal glasses. Menus were distributed. "Please order anything," said Tiffany loudly, glancing at her father. "Dad is treating us tonight. Let's celebrate the first step toward our wedding." Kate opened the menu, looking at the fantastic prices. Wagyu, a 5, caviar, truffles. Tiffany ordered everything without hesitation, without asking even once if her father minded. Brenda also ordered the most expensive dishes, wanting to taste the flavor of luxury. "Dad, what are you ordering?" asked Tiffany. "Just water," answered Arthur softly. "What? Why? Order a steak. Don't act like a poor person." Tiffany laughed crisply, a laugh that sounded discordant to Kate's ears. Preston smiled awkwardly. "Make Uncle's order the same as mine," he told the waiter. "And please, bring your best bottle of red wine for the starter." Tiffany looked at Kate with a look that said, "Don't be stingy," then focused back on Preston. The food began to arrive one by one. The atmosphere seemed warm on the surface. But under the table, Arthur's leg was shaking. He glanced at Kate. His daughter nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly. Now or never. Kate's phone on the table vibrated once. 7:55 p.m. 5 minutes before the credit card was blocked. 5 minutes before the illusion collapsed, Tiffany suddenly stood up holding her wine glass. She tapped the glass with a spoon, demanding attention. "Before we eat the main course," said Tiffany with a wide smile, looking at Preston then shifting to her father, "I want to announce something, and I'm sure Dad is also impatient to give his special gift." Tiffany picked up a folder, not Kate's blue folder, but a folder she brought herself containing house brochures and wedding cost breakdowns. She placed it in front of Arthur. "Dad," said Tiffany. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes radiated a threat. "All of Dad's savings are mine, right? For my future. Now is the time for you to prove your love. Sign this." The room went silent. Preston looked at Arthur with expectation. Brenda held her breath, her eyes bulging, giving a signal. Arthur looked at the folder, then at Tiffany's greedy face, Brenda's ambitious face, and finally Kate's face, which was calm but gave him strength. Arthur slowly took his napkin, wiped his mouth, and placed it on the table. He didn't touch Tiffany's folder. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the navy blue folder. "Tiffany," said Arthur. His voice was hoarse but clearly audible in the quiet room. Kate straightened her back. She stared at her father intently and said in a low, deadly tone, "Dad, it's better not to stay silent. It's time to speak the reality." Silence. The quiet in the VVIP room felt odd, contrasting with the faint clinking of silverware from the next table heard through the soundproof walls. The cold air from the AC felt increasingly piercing. Cold sweat began to soak Arthur's back. Tiffany was still standing with the wine glass in her right hand and her left hand pointing at the folder containing the wedding costs lying in front of her father. Her smile was stiff, her eyes wide, trying to send a telepathic signal. "Sign now or I will make a scene." "Dad," pressed Tiffany again. Her tone was losing patience but still wrapped in sweet fakery. "Preston is waiting. Didn't you say those savings were prepared for a moment like this? All your savings are mine, right? You don't want your favorite daughter to be sad on her happy day, do you?" Across the table, Preston smiled politely, though there was a slight furrow of confusion on his forehead. "Uncle Arthur, if you're not ready to discuss this now, it's okay. Tiffany and I can." "Oh no, impossible," cut in Brenda quickly, her voice shrill, interrupting her future son-in-law. She stared at her husband with a gaze as sharp as a razor. Arthur promised, "This is a matter of our family's dignity. Preston, Arthur is a very organized person. The money is there. He just sometimes forgets where he puts the documents." "Right, Arthur?" Brenda kicked Arthur's leg under the table. "Hard." Arthur winced quietly. He looked at the wedding folder Tiffany offered. The numbers inside $200,000. The Hamptons house. The new car. It felt like a noose around his neck. He then shifted his gaze to Kate. Kate sat with a straight back. Her hands were folded calmly in her lap. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes radiated a firmness Arthur had never possessed. That look said, "Finish this, Dad, or I will." "Dad," repeated Kate. Her voice was calm but sliced through the silence like a scalpel. It's best not to stay silent. It's time to speak the reality. They ordered food worth thousands, ordered dreams worth millions, assuming your wallet is thick. I pity Preston if he enters this family with his eyes closed. Hearing Preston's name mentioned, Tiffany turned sharply toward her stepsister. What do you mean, Kate? Don't try to ruin tonight, okay? You're jealous, aren't you? Jealous because I got a rich fiancé while you're an old maid busy working. Enough, Tiffany. Arthur's voice was heard. Not a shout, but a weary statement carrying the weight of despair. Arthur's wrinkled hand slowly pushed Tiffany's wedding folder to the side. The movement was slow but definitive. Instead, he opened the navy blue folder prepared by Kate. Inside was not a check, not a deposit certificate, but a stack of financial reports stamped bankrupt in red and copies of bank statements showing a balance of nearly zero. Tiffany, Brenda. Sit down, said Arthur. I don't want to sit before you sign, shouted Tiffany, starting to get hysterical. She felt her stage being shaken. Sit down. This time, Arthur's voice rose, causing Tiffany to jump in surprise and reflexively drop her bottom back onto the chair. Preston looked increasingly uncomfortable. He started glancing at his watch. What is actually going on? Asked Preston quietly. His intuition as a businessman began picking up danger signals. Brenda, sensing the bad omen, stood up and slammed the table, making the water glasses shake. What is this? What secret is there, Arthur? Don't play around. You want to embarrass us in front of Preston? If you're stingy, just say you're stingy. Don't act mysterious. Brenda's scream echoed in the luxurious room, contrasting with the classical music playing softly. A waiter briefly peeked in, hearing the commotion, but Kate signaled with her hand not to enter yet. Not a secret, Brenda, answered Arthur, looking at his wife with a sorrowful gaze, but a reality you have refused to see all this time. Arthur took a deep breath, filling his lungs with remaining courage. He took a document from the blue folder and placed it in the center of the Lazy Susan. Then he rotated it slowly until the document stopped right in front of Preston and Tiffany. It was an official bankruptcy court decision. 5 years ago, Sterling Construction was declared bankrupt, said Arthur. His voice trembled at the start but became steadier as the burden of the lie lifted. Company assets were seized by the bank. The house we live in, the cars you drive, all the retirement savings, gone to cover debts to vendors and employee severance pay. Tiffany stared wide-eyed at the paper. The letters seemed to dance, mocking her. This is a lie, right? You just want to test me, right? You want to see if I'm a gold digger or not, right? Dad, it's not funny. Tiffany's laugh broke discordant and manic. There is no test, Tiffany, continued Arthur. I am totally broke. I have no deposits. I have no stocks. My pension is only enough to pay for electricity and water. Even that is barely enough. Liar! Shrieked Brenda. Her face turned crimson red. Her foundation seemed to crack under the expression of her anger. If you're bankrupt, where does my monthly allowance of $2,000 come from? How can Tiffany buy branded bags? How can we eat well every day? Huh? Brenda turned to Preston, trying to find an ally. Preston, don't believe him. This old man likes to dramatize. He's just afraid his fortune will be drained by his children. Preston didn't answer. The man picked up the document on the table, reading it carefully. As a business management graduate, he knew the document was authentic. Court seal, trustee signature. Everything was legitimate. Preston's face turned cold. Uncle Arthur. Preston put the paper back. So all this time, your family's lifestyle was subsidized, replied Arthur. He pointed at Kate, who was still sitting calmly, sipping her wine. Everything you have enjoyed for the last 5 years, from the rice you eat, the gas for the car, Tiffany's facials, to the clothes you are wearing tonight, everything was paid for by Kate. Tiffany and Brenda instantly turned toward Kate. Their necks snapped so fast they almost cracked. Her? Tiffany pointed at Kate with a trembling index finger. This stingy one? This ordinary employee? Dad, don't make things up. She's just a freelance consultant. Her salary couldn't possibly support us. Kate smiled thinly. She put down her glass. Freelance consultant is just a polite term, Tiffany, so you wouldn't ask me for money directly. In reality, I am the owner of Apex Capital. The company that acquired the remaining assets of Dad's company restructured them and made them profitable again. Kate pulled out her real business card, black with gold lettering, Catherine Sterling, CEO, Apex Capital, and threw it onto the table. The card slid smoothly and stopped in front of Tiffany's untouched steak plate. 5 years I subsidized your lives, continued Kate coldly. I thought by giving you comfort, Dad could live in peace. But it turns out feeding a crocodile only makes the crocodile hungrier. You didn't just eat my money, but you also ate Dad's dignity. The reaction in the room was a mix of horror and disbelief. Tiffany felt her world crumbling. Not because her father was bankrupt, but because she realized that all this time she had lived off the pity of the person she hated and underestimated most. The stepsister she always mocked as a boring old maid turned out to be the big boss holding their financial lives. Impossible, hissed Brenda. She shook her head, trying to deny reality. You must have stolen your father's money. You manipulated Arthur to transfer his assets to your name, right? You ungrateful child, venomous snake. Brenda was about to lunge at Kate, but Arthur's hand held her arm firmly. For the first time in years, Arthur's grip felt authoritative. Watch your mouth, Brenda, growled Arthur. Kate saved me from prison. If she hadn't paid off my debts with her biological mother's inheritance and the sweat of her own brow, I would be rotting in a cell for fraud. Where were you then? You were busy at the country club. So. Tiffany's voice broke, tears starting to ruin her mascara. She looked at Preston in panic. Preston, listen to me. I didn't know about this. Swear, I'm a victim too. Dad pranked me. Preston slowly pushed his chair back. His body language was clear. He wanted distance. Tiffany, you said your father had a trust fund. You said your family was the majority shareholder in a construction firm. You said... Preston swallowed, feeling disgusted. You said your lifestyle was old money. Turns out it's the result of leeching off your sister? But not like that, honey. Tiffany tried to reach for Preston's hand, but the man brushed it off gently. I'm sorry, Tiffany, said Preston. His voice was polite but cold as ice. My family values honesty above all else. Money issues can be fixed, but a fundamental lie like this, faking social status for prestige, that is the biggest red flag. But we're getting married, screamed Tiffany. Marriage needs a foundation, and your foundation is quicksand, replied Preston sharply. He turned to Arthur and Kate, nodding respectfully. Uncle Arthur, Miss Sterling, excuse me. I think this dinner is over for me. Preston, don't go. Preston. Tiffany tried to chase him, but her dress got caught on the chair leg, nearly causing her to fall. She sat back down, crying loudly like a toddler whose candy was stolen. Brenda, seeing her gold mine walking out the door, immediately shifted her anger to the source of the problem. She stared at Kate wildly. Are you satisfied? Shouted Brenda. You planned all this on purpose, didn't you? You're jealous your sister is happy. You destroyed her engagement right in front of her eyes. You devil. I only opened the curtain, replied Kate casually, as if Brenda's screaming was just the buzzing of a mosquito. You staged the comedy drama yourselves. Tiffany wiped her tears roughly, leaving black smudges on her cheeks. Her shame turned into explosive anger. She picked up her wine glass and splashed the contents at Kate. However, Kate was ready. With a quick reflex, she raised the blue folder in her hand, making it a shield. The red liquid soaked the folder, but not a drop touched Kate's clothes. Tiffany, snapped Arthur, standing up from his chair. That is enough. What is enough? Retorted Tiffany, challenging her father. You conspired with her? Okay, if you're really bankrupt and have no money, what about the house we live in? That's an asset, right? Sell that house. I need compensation money because you humiliated me. Sell the house and split the proceeds. I want to move out of this crazy family. Brenda immediately seized the idea. Right, the house in Greenwich is worth at least $4 or $5 million. Sell it right now. That is marital property. I am entitled to half, and Tiffany is entitled too. Kate laughed. This time her laugh was loose, genuinely finding it funny. She put down the wet folder and took a tissue to wipe her hands. You two really don't understand the law, or are you pretending to be stupid? Asked Kate. The house in Greenwich is not marital property. It was an inheritance from my biological mother to me, and the deed was transferred to my name when I was 17, long before Dad married you, Brenda." Brenda's face went pale. "Impossible. Arthur said it was his house." "I said it was our home," corrected Arthur. "But legally, the sole owner is Kate. I am just a guest. So," Tiffany stammered, her eyes darting around the room. "So, I own nothing? We have nothing?" "You have the clothes sticking to your bodies," said Kate flatly. She glanced at her watch. 8 p.m. "Oh, and you also have the bill for this dinner." "What do you mean?" asked Brenda warily. Right at that moment, Tiffany and Brenda's phones beeped simultaneously. A notification message. Tiffany checked her phone, her eyes widening. "Alert. Your supplementary credit card ending in 4,567 has been permanently blocked by the primary account holder." "My credit card?" Tiffany stared at her phone screen in horror. "Why is it blocked?" "Because the person paying the bill every month is me," answered Kate while standing up. She smoothed her skirt. "From this second, the tap is closed. No more pocket money, no more credit cards, no more lifestyle subsidies." "You can't do this!" Brenda became hysterical. "I am your father's wife. You are obligated to support us." "The obligation to provide lies with the husband," replied Kate calmly. "And your husband, my father, already said he has no money. So, please, go live independently." The atmosphere in the room felt suffocating. Tiffany sat limply staring at the $100 Wagyu steak that now looked like a useless hunk of meat. Brenda trembled, holding back anger and fear of a future that suddenly went pitch black. Kate grabbed her handbag and extended a hand to her father. "Come on, Dad, let's go." Arthur nodded. He stood up, buttoning his suit. He looked at his wife and stepdaughter one last time with a gaze of pity. "Forgive me, Brenda. Tiffany, I failed to teach you gratitude. Maybe this lesson is late, but it is the only way you can learn." "Dad, where are you going?" cried Tiffany in panic, seeing her father leaving. "You can't leave us here. Who will pay for all this?" Kate turned slightly, giving a cold smirk. "Since you ordered so arrogantly earlier." And Tiffany said, "All Dad's savings are mine. Go ahead and pay with your own money. Consider it practice for being truly rich." "But we don't have cash," screamed Brenda. "My wallet is empty." "You blocked my card." "That is not my problem," answered Kate. "Oh, one more thing." Kate stopped at the doorway. Her hand held the gold door handle. "Don't bother coming home to Greenwich tonight. The locks have been changed. All your personal items, clothes, cosmetics, and Tiffany's bag collection have been packed neatly by the security guards and placed at the guardhouse out front. You are forbidden from entering my private property." "You're kicking us out?" Tiffany's voice shrieked until the veins in her neck bulged. "Not kicking out," corrected Kate. "Just stopping the housing of parasites. I've prepared an apartment for Dad elsewhere. Much quieter without your screaming." "Dad, don't go with her. She's a devil. Dad!" Tiffany tried to manipulate her father's emotions again. But Arthur had already turned his back. He gripped Kate's hand tightly, as if his daughter's hand was the only real thing in this world. They both stepped out of the VVIP room. The door closed slowly, muffling Brenda's hysterical screams and Tiffany's sobs that broke instantly. In the corridor, the restaurant manager, who had been conditioned by Kate's assistant, stood waiting with a polite but firm face. Kate nodded at him. "The bill is on the table inside, sir," Kate said calmly. "Please ensure they pay it. If they cannot pay, feel free to call the police or make them wash dishes. I have no objection." "Understood, miss." "Sterling," replied the manager. Kate and Arthur walked toward the elevator. Arthur's steps felt light, as if the burden of 5 years crushing his chest had been left in that VVIP room, along with the untouched food leftovers. "Thank you, Kate," whispered Arthur as the elevator doors closed, taking them down and away from the toxic past. "You're welcome, Dad." Kate leaned her head on her father's shoulder. "Now, let's go eat a burger at a diner." "I'm hungry." Arthur laughed softly, a genuine laugh that had been missing for a long time. Great idea. Meanwhile, inside the private room of Le Bernardin, hell was just beginning for Tiffany and Brenda. A waiter entered carrying a tray with a bill worth $1,200, and they both realized they didn't have a single cent they could use. The door to the private room clicked shut, leaving Brenda and Tiffany in a silence that screamed louder than words. The smell of Wagyu leftovers and truffle sauce, which had been appetizing before, now felt nauseating. A waiter entered with a polite but firm step, carrying a small black leather folder. He placed it in the center of the table, right between Tiffany's still full wine glass and Brenda's messy plate. "Excuse me, ma'am." "The check," the waiter said flatly. Brenda's hands shook as she opened the folder. Her eyes widened, seeing the numbers on the receipt. Total $1,250. This included tax and gratuity. "Tiffany!" hissed Brenda. Cold sweat ran down her temples. "Try calling Preston. Tell him to come back. Say Dad fainted or something. We need him to pay this." Tiffany, her face swollen from crying, grabbed her phone in a panic. She dialed Preston's number. "The number you are dialing is currently unavailable." Straight to voicemail. "Mom, he blocked me." Tiffany slammed her phone onto the table. The screen cracked as their fate that night. "That jerk ran away. Damn it," cursed Brenda. She dug into her bag, pulling out a snakeskin wallet also bought with Kate's credit card last month. She pulled out a platinum credit card. "Use this. Quick." The waiter took the card and stepped out briefly. 2 minutes later, he returned with the restaurant manager. "I apologize, ma'am," said the manager with a forced smile. "This card was declined. The terminal says pickup card, blocked by the issuer. Do you have another form of payment? Try this one." Brenda threw another card. "Visa Gold." "Declined as well, ma'am. This debit card? Insufficient funds, ma'am. There is a remaining balance of $2. Brenda's face went pale white as the tablecloth. She looked at Tiffany. "Do you have cash?" "Why would I carry cash, Mom? I always use Dad's card," screamed Tiffany in frustration. The restaurant manager began to lose his patience. His smile disappeared, replaced by a sharp, investigating look. "Ladies, we cannot let guests leave without paying. If there is no payment according to procedure, we will have to call the authorities for theft of services. No police," exclaimed Tiffany. Her career as a micro-influencer would be over if she made criminal news for not being able to pay for dinner. "In that case, we need collateral," said the manager coldly. His eyes fell on Tiffany's iPhone 15 Pro Max, which screen had just cracked, and the gold ring on Brenda's finger. "Leave your ID, the phone, and the jewelry you are wearing as collateral. You must settle the bill within 24 hours. If not, we will pawn these items and report the balance to the police." "This is my wedding ring," protested Brenda, clutching her finger. "Choose, ma'am. The ring or a cell." The night ended in perfect humiliation. Tiffany and Brenda walked out of the luxury restaurant empty-handed. Tiffany's phone was confiscated. Brenda's ring and necklace were held. They walked past the lobby, stared at cynically by the staff, whispering to each other. No more heads held high in arrogance, only feet dragging in shame. The New York sky seemed to conspire with Kate. Heavy rain poured down on the city, leaving puddles of dirty water on the curbs. Tiffany and Brenda stood outside the lobby, shivering. The Escalade that brought them was gone along with Kate's driver. They had no Uber app because Tiffany's phone was seized, and Brenda's phone had run out of data, something Kate's secretary used to automatically top up. "How are we getting home, Mom?" whined Tiffany. Her expensive dress was splashed with mud from passing cars, a yellow cab. "We'll pay at the house. We'll ask Mr. Henderson, the guard, to pay for it first," answered Brenda sharply. Her head was spinning. After waiting 20 minutes, a beat-up taxi stopped. They got in roughly, making the driver frown. 8 Oak Street, Greenwich, ordered Brenda. The ride felt incredibly long. Upon arriving in front of the tall pillared gate that had been their palace, Brenda sighed in relief. At least they could sleep in soft beds and plot revenge tomorrow. However, the sight in front of the gate stopped their hearts. On the sidewalk outside the fence, under the dim streetlights, piled large Louis Vuitton and Samsonite suitcases. Boxes containing shoes and bags were scattered next to them, covered by a blue plastic tarp to keep them dry. The house gate was locked tight with a large new chain padlock. Mr. Henderson?" shouted Brenda while getting out of the taxi, ignoring the rain soaking her hair. A middle-aged security guard came out of the guardhouse, but he didn't open the gate. He just stood behind the iron bars. "Open the gate! Are you crazy putting our things outside?" snapped Tiffany, who also got out. "Sorry, ma'am, Miss Tiffany," answered Mr. Henderson flatly. All this time, he had often been yelled at by these two women just for being slow to open the fence. Now there was hidden satisfaction in his eyes. Direct orders from the homeowner, Miss Kate Sterling. The locks have been changed to digital. Old access codes deleted. "This is my husband's house." "The deed is in Miss Kate's name, ma'am. I just work here." "Oh, here is a letter." Mr. Henderson slipped a white envelope through the gap in the fence. Brenda snatched the letter. The contents were brief. "Your personal items have been removed. Do not attempt to force entry, or the alarm will connect directly to the local police precinct for breaking and entering. Enjoy your independence. Kate." "That bitch! Kate!" Tiffany screamed hysterically, kicking the iron fence until her foot hurt. "Lady, the meter is running!" shouted the taxi driver from inside the car. "Are you paying or what?" Brenda felt her jacket pockets. Empty. "Mr. Henderson, lend me $50 for the taxi. Quick!" Mr. Henderson shook his head politely. "Sorry, ma'am. Left my wallet. Besides, my salary hasn't come through yet. Since you were the one who usually held it up if I made a mistake." Karma was instant and painful. Finally, Tiffany was forced to take off her imitation diamond earrings, the only jewelry not seized by the restaurant because they thought they were fake to pay the grumpy driver. That night, under heavy rain, Brenda and Tiffany dragged their heavy suitcases along the wet sidewalk, looking for shelter, while the warm luxury house stood sturdy behind them, closed forever. 3 days later, morning sunlight entered through the cracks of a dull window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. It was not the master suite in Greenwich with central AC and a king coil mattress. It was a cheap motel room on the outskirts of Newark, New Jersey, costing $40 a night. Brenda woke up to the noise of truck exhausts from the highway outside. Her back hurt. The thin foam mattress felt like sleeping on a plank. "Tiffany, wake up!" Brenda shook her daughter's body. "We have to find food. Mama is hungry." Tiffany stretched, then hissed as she realized her reality hadn't changed. "Eat what? We have $10 left, Mom. The rest of the money from selling your watch is gone." They had sold one of Brenda's Rolex watches to a pawn shop. Unfortunately, because there was no box or papers left in the locked safe in Kate's house, the watch was valued very low, assumed to be stolen or fake. "We have to go to Kate's office," said Brenda. Her eyes flashed with revenge. "We'll confront her. We'll embarrass her in front of her employees until she gives us severance money." "But our clothes are all wrinkled. Mom, I have no skincare," complained Tiffany while checking herself in the cracked mirror hanging on the wall. Her face was dull. Pimples were starting to appear due to stress and dirty water. "Screw the clothes. In fact, if we look like homeless people, people will pity us more and hate Kate the ungrateful child even more." Brenda began plotting her cunning strategy. However, before they could launch their action, another problem arose. Someone banged on the door loudly. "Hey, rent is due today. If there's no money, get out by noon," shouted the motel manager. Tiffany covered her face with a pillow. "I can't believe my life is like this. This is all Dad's fault. Why did he have to go bankrupt? Why couldn't he just embezzle money so we stayed rich?" "Shut up," snapped Brenda. "This is your fault for showing off too much in front of Preston. If you hadn't forced the signature that night, we could still live comfortably, pretending to be rich at least until you got married. Why blame me? You're the one who told me to find a rich husband so you could leech off him." An argument broke out in the cramped room, blaming each other, cursing each other. Without Kate's money acting as the glue for their falseness, the mother-daughter relationship cracked, showing how fragile bonds built on greed really were. They finally fell silent from exhaustion and hunger. Reality hit them hard. They had no survival skills. Brenda had never worked a day in her life other than being a trophy wife, and Tiffany was a college graduate whose diploma was withheld because tuition hadn't been paid again. She lied to Arthur about tuition money being used for a trip to Bali. They were truly paralyzed without subsidies. Meanwhile, In a penthouse apartment in Tribeca, Arthur sat on a spacious balcony, sipping warm jasmine tea. In front of him, the view of the Manhattan skyline sprawled beautifully. The breeze brushed his face, which now looked much fresher. No screaming Tiffany asking for money, no nagging Brenda demanding jewelry. Only peace. "Dad, breakfast is ready." Kate's voice came from inside. Arthur turned. His daughter was setting the dining table, pancakes, eggs, and coffee. Simple, but cooked by Kate herself. "Thank you, dear." Arthur walked in and sat down. He looked at Kate with lingering guilt. "Kate, forgive me for burdening you. This apartment is too luxurious for a bankrupt old man like me." Kate smiled, pouring water for her father. "It's not a burden, Dad. It's an investment. Investment in your mental health. Besides, this apartment is a company asset that's rarely used. Better you take care of it than let it collect dust." Arthur took a bite of his pancake. It tasted good. It reminded him of the past when his first wife, Kate's mother, was still alive. "Them, what happened to them, Kate?" asked Arthur hesitantly. Kate stopped chewing for a moment. Her face showed no hatred, only professional firmness. "They are learning, Dad. I'm monitoring from afar. They are staying in a cheap motel in Jersey. They have their clothes. They are physically healthy? Isn't it too harsh?" "Dad," Kate put down her fork. "For 5 years, Brenda used your credit card for online gambling. Tiffany used her tuition money for parties. They never respected you as the head of the family, only as an ATM machine. If I give money now, they will never realize. They have to feel hunger to appreciate being full." Arthur fell silent. The fact about online gambling was new to him. Gambling. Yes, the bill I paid last month for $10,000 wasn't for Brenda's heart treatment like she claimed. It was to cover slot debts, Kate revealed. Arthur closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. The pity that had surfaced was now replaced by gratitude for being saved by his daughter. "You're right, Kate. I was too blind. My focus now is just one thing: resting. You like gardening, right? There's a vertical garden on the balcony that hasn't been tended to. Take care of it. Enjoy your old age without drama." Arthur looked at his daughter with teary eyes. "Thank you for not hating me, even though I let them oppress you." "I never hated you, Dad. I only hated your helplessness. And now you are free." That morning ended with light laughter discussing types of fertilizer for orchids, a painful contrast to the morning at the cheap motel where Brenda and Tiffany were. At noon, chaos erupted in the lobby of the Apex Capitol Tower. The 30-story office building was usually quiet and professional, with people in suits passing by. However, that harmony was broken by the presence of 2 women with disheveled appearances shouting at the reception desk. "Call Kate! Call that ungrateful child!" shouted Brenda. Her hair was messy. Her once luxurious clothes looked crumpled from sleeping in them for 3 days. "I apologize, ma'am. Miss Sterling is in a board meeting. Do you have an appointment?" asked the receptionist patiently, though her nose wrinkled slightly at the musty smell. "I am her mother. Since when do mothers need appointments to see their children? Do you know who I am?" "I am Mrs. Arthur Sterling." Brenda slammed her hand on the marble reception desk. Tiffany stood beside her mother, trying to live stream on her social account with a borrowed phone, her old cracked backup phone. "Guys, look at this. The CEO of Apex Capital, who claims to be successful, turns out to be neglecting her mother and sister. Make this viral, guys, so her stocks crash." Tiffany shouted into the camera, hoping for netizen sympathy. Several employees and couriers passing by stopped to watch. Security guards began to approach. "Ma'am, please don't cause a scene or we will have to remove you," said the head of security firmly. "Touch me and I'll scream harassment," threatened Brenda recklessly. She had no shame left. Hunger made her savage. Suddenly, the executive elevator opened. The lobby atmosphere instantly went silent. Kate stepped out, accompanied by 2 assistants and her legal counsel. She looked perfect in a charcoal gray business suit, hair neatly styled, and an aura of power that was undeniable. She walked toward the crowd without fear. "What is this commotion in my office?" asked Kate. Her voice was calm but echoed in the high-ceilinged marble lobby. "Kate!" Brenda immediately softened, changing tactics from angry to begging. She dropped to her knees on the floor. "Help Mama, child. Mama is hungry. Tiffany is sick. We sleep in a place with cockroaches. How can you be so cruel to us? Tiffany pointed her camera at Kate's face. See, guys? She just stands there watching her mother beg. Kate looked at the lens of Tiffany's phone, then shifted her gaze to Brenda kneeling. She didn't back down, nor did she look pitying. Brenda, Kate called out, not using mother. Stand up. Don't dirty my office floor with your cheap drama. You are evil, Kate. Give us money. At least return access to the house, wailed Brenda. Kate signaled her lawyer. The lawyer stepped forward, handing a document to Brenda. What is this? That is a detailed record of the embezzlement you committed for 5 years, Kate said loudly so all employees could hear. Forging Dad's signature for loan applications, theft of my late mother's jewelry, and online gambling debts. Brenda's face changed from pleading to shocked. And for you, Tiffany, Kate looked at her stepsister. Stop recording or I will sue you for defamation. My evidence is complete that I funded your lives all this time, and you repaid it by blackmailing my aging father. Tiffany trembled. She looked at the comments column on her live stream. Instead of defending her, netizens turned to attack. Wait, so all this time they were leeches? Plot twist. The CEO paid for everything? So embarrassing. Grown adults begging their stepsister for money. Tiffany hurriedly turned off the broadcast. Listen carefully, said Kate. Her voice thundered. This office is a professional place where people work hard to earn a living. Not a place for beggars disguised as family to demand rights they never worked for. Security, yes, Miss Sterling. 4 burly guards stepped forward simultaneously. Escort them out and post their photos at the security post. Blacklist them from all Apex Capital properties. Understood, ma'am. Kate! Wait, Kate! Mercy! Brenda tried to grab Kate's leg, but the guards swiftly lifted her and dragged her out the revolving door. Tiffany struggled as she was herded out. Let me go! I'll report you all! The glass doors closed. Their screams were muffled, then lost in the hustle and bustle of the New York streets. Kate stood still for a moment, straightening her blazer sleeve. She looked at her employees who were still transfixed. Show's over. Back to work, she ordered. In an instant, the lobby was busy again. But the employees' respect for their leader increased drastically. They knew their CEO was not a woman to be trifled with. Outside the building, on the hot, dusty sidewalk, Brenda and Tiffany sat slumped, legal documents in Brenda's hand and burning shame in their chests. This was no longer just falling into poverty. This was total social destruction. And worst of all, they knew Kate held the ace card that could send them to prison at any time. A large sign reading, "For Sale," was now attached across the iron fence of the luxury house in Greenwich. The sign was like a victory flag for Kate, but a tombstone for Brenda and Tiffany's social lives. News of the house sale spread quickly in the Greenwich socialite WhatsApp groups. Gossip ran wild, from Arthur going bankrupt to the scandal of the wife's eviction. Brenda, holding on to shreds of dignity, tried to sneak into the neighborhood that afternoon, wearing large sunglasses and a scarf to cover her dull face. She stood across the street, hiding behind an oak tree, staring at the house she had considered hers for the last 5 years. A black sedan pulled up in front of the gate. A real estate agent stepped out with a young couple potential buyers. "No, don't," hissed Brenda. Unconsciously, she ran across the street. "Hey! Who are you? Who allowed this sign?" The real estate agent, a professional young woman, looked at Brenda in confusion. "Excuse me, who are you?" "I am the listing agent appointed by the owner, Miss Catherine Sterling." "I am the mistress of this house, Arthur Sterling's wife," shouted Brenda hysterically. She tried to rip the sign down with her nails, but it was tied tight with wire. "This is marital property. It cannot be sold without my signature." The potential buyers stepped back, frightened by the screaming woman. Suddenly, a car horn honked. The rear window of the black sedan rolled down. Kate sat there, looking at Brenda with a bored expression. She had come intentionally to monitor the viewing. "Just proceed, Jessica," Kate said to the agent, ignoring her stepmother's screams. "This woman has no legal rights to this property. The deed is in my name personally since 2010. If she obstructs, call the community security." "Kate! You ungrateful child!" shrieked Brenda, tears spilling. "You're selling this house? Where will Mama live? Your father has the heart to let his wife be homeless?" Kate stepped out of the car. She stood facing Brenda. They were the same height, but Kate's aura made Brenda feel tiny. "This house is a dead asset, Brenda. Maintenance costs are $10,000 a month. Money I burned just to facilitate your ego," Kate said coldly. "And regarding a place to live, you have 2 hands and 2 feet. Work. Become a cleaner or whatever. Millions of people survive by working, not by leeching off a husband. But I'm old. My father is older than you, and you squeezed him dry. Move aside. Don't block the buyers, or I'll add a harassment charge to your lawsuit file." Brenda fell silent. The legal threat was real. She saw the buyers looking at her with disgust, a look she used to give to poor people. With slumped shoulders, Brenda stepped back, letting the gate open for strangers. She realized her last fortress had collapsed. Losing the house made Tiffany increasingly desperate. Her beautiful dream was shattered. Preston had blocked all communication. Her socialite friends drifted away after learning she wasn't truly rich. Now, Tiffany's only hope was to manipulate her father again. Tiffany knew Arthur's habits. Every Thursday afternoon, her father always went for a heart checkup at his regular doctor in the city. That was the gap Tiffany exploited. That afternoon in the hospital lobby, Tiffany waited. She deliberately wore the most shabby clothes she had. She wore no makeup, making her face look pale and pitiful. When she saw Arthur coming out of the pharmacy elevator, Tiffany immediately ran and hugged her father's legs. "Daddy! Daddy, help me!" Tiffany cried loudly in the middle of the crowded lobby. People started to turn. Arthur was shocked. He almost lost his balance. "Tiffany? Stand up, child. Don't be like this." "I can't take it, Dad," sobbed Tiffany. She looked up with wet eyes. "Mom is evil to me. Mom blames me constantly. I'm hungry, Dad. I want to go with you. I promise I'll be a good girl. I want to take care of you." Arthur's heart wavered. After all, Tiffany was the child he had raised for the last 5 years. Although not his own flesh and blood, a father's pity began to emerge. His hand reached out to stroke Tiffany's head. However, the movement stopped. Arthur remembered the night at Le Bernardin. He remembered Tiffany's sentence, "All Dad's savings are mine." He remembered how Tiffany ordered $1,000 food without caring if her father could pay. He remembered Tiffany's laugh when mocking him as stingy. Arthur pulled his hand back. He straightened his body. "Tiffany," called Arthur gently but firmly. "Stand up." Tiffany stood, thinking her heart had successfully melted her father. "Dad, you forgive me, right? Let's go home to your apartment. I miss your cooking." Arthur shook his head slowly. He reached into his pants pocket and pulled out his wallet. Tiffany held her breath. Her eyes lit up, seeing the red bills. Arthur took out 2 $20 bills. Only 2. "This is for you to eat today and tomorrow," said Arthur, handing over the $40. "Only $40? Protested Tiffany spontaneously. Her true nature came out for a split second before she hurriedly covered her mouth. This isn't enough for rent, Dad. I am not giving you rent money. I am giving you food money," answered Arthur. "Tiffany, I am old. I am retired, not just retired from work, but retired from being your walking ATM. But I'm your daughter. A father wouldn't let his daughter be humiliated in public for pride." "Tiffany, a daughter wouldn't demand an inheritance while her parents are still alive." Arthur looked at Tiffany with a gaze implying deep disappointment. "You don't miss me. You miss my facilities. Go back to your mother. Learn to live hard so you know how to value that $40. Arthur turned and walked toward the exit where Kate's driver was waiting. Tiffany stood frozen, holding the 2 bills. She realized her tear tactics no longer worked. Her father, who was once weak and submissive, now had a strong backbone thanks to Kate. 2 weeks later, the house on Oak Street was officially sold. The buyer was a tech mogul who wanted to completely renovate the house. Today was the key handover day. Moving trucks arrived not to move Brenda's things to a new place, but to haul the remaining furniture not included in the sale to be auctioned or donated by Kate. Brenda and Tiffany came again, this time recklessly trying to enter when the gate opened for the truck. "That's my sofa! That was bought for my birthday!" shouted Brenda upon seeing an Italian leather sofa being carried by movers. Kate's lawyer, Mr. Harrison, blocked them carrying a thick file. "Mrs. Brenda," said Mr. Harrison calmly, "this sofa was bought on the 12th of March 2021 using a platinum credit card under the name Catherine Sterling. Here is the proof. That crystal lamp was bought via bank transfer from Kate's account. That teak cabinet is an heirloom from the late Mrs. Sterling, Arthur's first wife." "Is there nothing that belongs to me?" snapped Brenda. "There is," answered Mr. Harrison. He pointed to a cardboard box in the corner of the yard. "It contains your collection of gossip magazines, some old nightgowns, and expired makeup kits. Please take them." Neighbors began coming out of their houses, pretending to water plants or sweep driveways, but really wanting to watch the free drama. Brenda felt her face burning. She, who used to show off being the grand lady of this complex, was now treated like trash. "This is an insult!" Brenda kicked the box. "No, ma'am. This is asset inventory," corrected Mr. Harrison. "Miss Sterling instructed that 100% of the proceeds from this house sale will be used for business expansion and Mr. Arthur's pension fund. You and Tiffany get $0 because there was no ownership contribution. And one more thing," added Mr. Harrison, his eyes sharp. "We found evidence that you tried to pawn the deed to this house 2 years ago to a loan shark, but were rejected because the name on the deed wasn't yours. That is attempted fraud. Mrs. Brenda, Miss Kate is kind enough not to report that to the police. As long as you leave here right now and never return." Hearing the words police and fraud, Brenda's courage shrank. She knew her sins were too many. Tiffany looked at the big house with a blank stare. Her room, where she live-streamed, where she dreamed of being a princess, was now just an empty, alien building. "Come on, Mom," Tiffany invited softly, dragging her mother away. "People are staring." They walked away carrying the cardboard box of junk. Behind them, the Greenwich gate closed tight. The sound of metal clashing clang sounded like a final verdict. Their past was finished. Their fall hadn't reached the bottom. The true bottom came 3 days after the eviction, in the form of 2 burly men in leather jackets visiting the dingy motel room in New Jersey. That night it rained heavily. The motel roof leaked, dripping water right onto Tiffany's thin mattress. Bang! 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 The door was hammered roughly, almost breaking. "Open up, Brenda! We know you're in there!" A heavy voice sounded from outside. Brenda trembled in the corner of the room. Her face was pale. She recognized that voice. It was the debt collector from the illegal gambling syndicate she had been avoiding. Before, she was safe living in a gated community. Now, no guards protected her. Tiffany was confused. "Who is that, Mom? What other debt do you have?" Before Brenda could answer, the door was kicked open. 2 debt collectors entered with muddy boots. "Well, found the sewer rat," said one of the men, grinning. "Brenda, your debt is 3 months overdue. Compound interest. Total is now $15,000. I don't have money, guys," squeaked Brenda in fear. "My husband went bankrupt." "We don't care if your husband is bankrupt or dead. You borrowed using your own ID." The man grabbed Brenda's collar. "Pay now or we take assets." "There are no valuables here." "Look!" Brenda cried. The second man glanced at Tiffany, who was cowering in fear, hugging her dirty bag. "The daughter looks decent. Could be sold to pay off the interest." "No!" Tiffany screamed, retreating until she hit the wall. "Don't touch me!" Brenda, in extreme panic, suddenly pointed at Tiffany. Yes, she has a rich ex-fiancé. Take her to him, ask for ransom. Or she can work doing whatever for you guys. Just don't hurt me." Tiffany's eyes widened. She looked at her mother in disbelief. Her own mother, the person who claimed to love her, just tried to sacrifice her for a gambling debt. "Are you crazy, Mom?" shouted Tiffany. Anger defeated her fear. She grabbed an empty glass bottle from the table and smashed it on the floor, brandishing the jagged neck at the debt collectors and her own mother. "Nobody come near me. I'll call the cops right now. I'll scream fire so the whole motel comes out." The motel was packed with rough characters. If Tiffany screamed, chaos would ensue. The debt collectors knew the risk. Okay, easy, girl," said the collector, stepping back slightly. "We don't want heat. But listen, Brenda, we give you 48 hours. If no money, your life is the collateral. We will terrorize you wherever you go." They spat on the floor and left the broken door. Silence for a moment, only the sound of Tiffany's heavy breathing. Slowly, Tiffany lowered the broken bottle. She looked at her mother with pure disgust. No respect left, no love left. "You wanted to sell me," whispered Tiffany coldly. Mama panicked. "Tiffany." It was spontaneous. Brenda tried to approach. "Don't touch me!" snapped Tiffany. She grabbed her bag, stuffing in a few clothes. "Where are you going? Don't leave Mama alone." "I'm going anywhere as long as it's not with you," said Tiffany. "All this time I thought Dad was the villain. Kate was the villain. Turns out my biggest enemy is my own mother. You made me spoiled. You taught me to be a gold digger, and now you want to sell me. Tiffany, you can't survive without Mama. Actually, I'll die if I stay with you." Tiffany stepped out of the motel room, into the night rain. She didn't know where to go, maybe a shelter, or look for a job as a waitress. What was clear was she had to break this toxic chain. Leaving Brenda alone in the leaking room, crying loudly, chased by debt, left by a husband, and now abandoned by her own daughter, karma had come to collect in full. 6 months later, the morning atmosphere in upstate New York felt cool and peaceful. Inside a simple but lush greenhouse, Arthur Sterling was busy trimming orchid branches. His face looked fuller, his skin tanned from the morning sun, and his smile, that smile, was genuine. Not the pressured smile from when he lived in Greenwich. "Dad, coffee." Kate arrived carrying a tray with 2 mugs and some muffins. She wore casual clothes, jeans, and a sweater far from the stiff CEO impression. Weekends were time to be a daughter. They sat on a wooden bench facing the expanse of flowers. "Is the orchid nursery business going well?" asked Kate, sipping her coffee. "Thank God, Kate. This month there's an order for 100 pots from a hotel in the city. The proceeds are decent, enough to add to the donations for the orphanage," answered Arthur proudly. Yes, Arthur didn't stay idle in Kate's luxury apartment. He asked for small capital, not millions, just a few thousand to rent a small plot of land and start his old hobby of gardening. Now he lived independently from his garden produce, though Kate still monitored his needs. "I'm happy seeing you like this, Dad," said Kate, more alive. Arthur put down his mug, looking at his daughter intently. "All thanks to you, Kate. If you hadn't slapped me with reality that night at the restaurant, I might be dead from a heart attack due to the stress of Brenda's debts." They were silent for a moment, enjoying the sound of birds chirping. "Have you heard any news of them, Kate?" asked Arthur softly. Kate nodded. She always knew everything. Her information network was vast. Tiffany works at an Amazon fulfillment center in New Jersey. She rents a small room, living paycheck to paycheck, but she's starting to learn independence. She hasn't contacted us again, maybe out of shame, or maybe she's trying to fix herself. "And Brenda?" Kate sighed. "Brenda was arrested for check fraud 2 months ago. She's currently awaiting trial. Illicit money never brings blessings." "Yeah." Arthur nodded in concern, but there was no desire to intervene. He had forgiven, but not forgotten. He knew helping people who wouldn't help themselves would only drag him down. "Dad," Kate held her father's hand, "next month I'm expanding business to London. I need a companion for the gala dinner there. Do you want to come?" Not as a bankrupt former director, but as the father of the CEO of Apex Capital. Arthur smiled broadly, his old eyes twinkling. "Of course, as long as we don't eat at a restaurant where the prices give me a heart attack again, okay?" Kate laughed freely. "Relax, this time I'm treating, and I ensure there will be no drama, no surprise bills, and no confessions of sin." The mountain wind blew gently, carrying the scent of wet earth and blooming flowers. Behind the dining table of their lives, the dirty plates of the past had been cleared. Now, only the sweet dessert remained, a peace fought for with honesty and courage.